Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to ASAP Recap. I'm here with Dustin, Stat Guy Syria. I'm Aaman Patel. Dustin, how are you doing today on this Friday afternoon?
Oh, couldn't be better, Aaman. Yourself?
I'm doing all right, and it's because of the phenomenal weekend we had in football that's got me so amped. It's carried me over into this weekend. Had actually my recent memory. I'm only 18 years old, but this one is definitely the one that sticks out in my mind. What game from the divisional round really got you going?
Well, I can say that this is probably the most exciting postseason that I've seen in my lifetime. And I don't think it's even close because I can't remember the last time we've had a postseason where virtually every game has gone down to the final minute of play. But I think the game that really got me going this weekend was the Bills and the Chiefs. Mainly because what those two teams did the final 3 minutes of the game is what every football fan dreams of. It was nonstop, just basically anything you can do, I can do better. Here, hold my beer. Let me show you this. I'm going to go out and do this. And then just when you think Josh Allen eliminates Patrick Mahomes, he goes 53 yards in 9 seconds to set up a game-tying field goal. Off to overtime we go, and a couple of plays later, the game is over. Patrick Mahomes is playing his Patrick Mahomes playoff football right now, and that is a scary thing when you are the NFL. I don't care how good your defense is. Buffalo's defense was number one against the pass, and Patrick Mahomes basically tore them to shreds because it is the playoffs now, and once we get to that level, he goes into Terminator mode.
Absolutely goes into Terminator mode, and you said it. Josh Allen had all but eliminated the Kansas City Chiefs with 13 seconds to go. He needed to go 53 yards, and Dallas Cowboys fans saying there's no way you can run a play in 13 seconds. Look at us. We tried to get it into field goal range. We tried to go 15 yards in 15 seconds and couldn't happen. They go 53 yards in 9 seconds to kick the game-winning field goal. That game was unbelievable. It felt like it was like on Madden rookie mode. It's just offense. There's no defense to be found. The computer is in the wrong spots, and for a Bills defense that came in as the number one defense in the league, there seemed to be no defense. I mean, I think each punter punted maybe one or two times, but then in the fourth quarter, there was just back and forth. And the dam just kind of broke on that game. For me, the game that had me in the most emotionally uncontrollable place was the Rams and the Bucs, because I'm sure you can see it right there, my Tom Brady poster. Man, the way this game started, I knew it was going to be rough, and then the Rams get off to such a hot start, and I'm just saying, they did just blow a lead to the San Francisco 49ers. Could they possibly do it? It's only 27-3. Brady's done it from 1 point more, and they kept coming back. They would mess it up. There was a flag that was thrown on Mike Evans that happened to be a dead ball foul, and they just kept going back and forth. A fumble from a couple fumbles from Cam Akers and Cooper Kupp kept them in the game. And Brady almost let it back. Leonard Fournette bounces out with 40 seconds to go. And me and my dad look at each other. He said, there's a little bit more time than you would have wanted. You really left too much time on that clock. And Todd Bowles tries to draw up a blitz, leaves Antoine Winfield on the Triple Crown winner, Cooper Kupp. And then you know the story. Matthew Stafford puts in an absolute dime, doing what he's done all his career in Detroit, finally get us on a national stage, runs up to spike the ball like he did in 2013. I forgot who Detroit was playing in that game, but it looked very similar and gave me flashbacks to that. And the Rams go ahead and win. Not the result I wanted, but again, every single game, even when you go from the Bengals game we talk about, last-second field goal, the Niners-Packers game, last-second field goal, or the Rams-Bucks game, last-second field goal, and then overtime, the Chiefs beat the Bills. Dustin, I'm going to ask you this question. Which team were you most impressed by from the divisional round?
It's kind of a tough one. Kind of what you just said, too, those 3 games where it was all decided by a field goal. All the field goals came with 4 seconds left on the clock. So it's kind of a fun anomaly to think about. But I don't know. Kansas City impressed me just because of what they did against the number 1 ranked defense. I mean, you put up 42 points against the number 1 ranked defense, you're doing something right. And now you're having a team come in next week or this week, and that's defense is ranked like number 15. I'm kind of afraid for Cincinnati's defense if that's what happens against the number 1 defense. But, I mean, the Rams did impress me too, simply because it was 27-3, and they were playing about as perfect as you could play that first half, and nothing went wrong. And then all of a sudden they started fumbling. And they started fumbling left and right. I even heard people blaming this on Matthew Stafford. I'm just shaking my head like, yeah, he's not the one fumbling the football right now, but okay, think what you want. And they could have just crumbled right there and let Tom Brady do Tom Brady things. But they didn't do that. They still played. They still made enough plays to win. And when the game was on the line, Matthew Stafford made the one throw that Jared Goff probably could never make. And it was basically hitting Cooper Kupp to set up the game-winning field goal. And that alone, I think, cemented himself and kind of is going to have the NFL world look at him differently as a quarterback now because he's out of Detroit and they can finally see that Detroit was the problem and Stafford really wasn't the problem. But those two teams, to me, I think were the most impressive last weekend. Like Cincinnati's win over Tennessee, yes, it was a nice win for them. Yes, it was their first AFC championship game in over 30 years, but I said from the beginning I did not trust Tennessee. I did not trust Ryan Tannehill. I did not trust Tennessee being able to go from not having Derrick Henry for 2 months to finally having him and just getting back to the way they were before he got hurt. So I think out of those wins, you got to say that Kansas City and the Rams are probably the two most impressive ones.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that statement. The thing that did impress me, though, with Cincinnati's win was it was a very, anti-Cincinnati type of game. The way they've been playing the last couple of weeks was we're going to throw the ball. We can run it a little bit, but we're just going to be an explosive offense. And they just didn't have time to be an explosive offense. Joe Burrow was getting beat around. And to me, for a young team to come out and adjust, it felt like in that last drive, they were able to get something going. The drive that set up the field goal, they were able to get something going and just protect him a little bit. They were able to do some different things. I thought that was impressive from a young head coach being able to say, you know what, let's go and adjust. For a young quarterback, say, let's adjust from these receivers and this young team who hasn't been in this spot. Like we said, this is Bengals' first AFC championship game. I've never seen them in an AFC championship game. People my age have never seen the Bengals in an AFC championship game. So it's been a long time. People 10 years older than me haven't even seen them in an AFC championship game. So for the Bengals, this young team to really adjust the way they did, while it's not the most impressive thing I did see all weekend because it might have been the most impressive weekend in football that we've ever seen, that was the one thing from that Cincinnati game that I take away. Said, no matter what the game is, this team is willing to adjust to play to that kind of standard. So The game we did not talk about was probably Dustin's favorite game of the week. We did not talk about the 49ers taking on the Packers. And I believe we both picked I picked San Francisco. I don't remember. And if I remember correctly, he also picked San Francisco to go and win this game. I'm going to let Dustin have his moment here. All right, Dustin, he lives in Wisconsin, but he's a Minnesota Vikings fan. Dustin, just go off. I want you to have your repeat of 7 minutes on the morning.
I've been saying it for the last 4 or 5 years now that Aaron Rodgers might be the greatest regular season quarterback in NFL history. The stats back it up. The touchdown interception ratio backs it up. The wins back it up. And everything that he's accomplished in the regular season proves that he is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, regular season quarterback ever to play the game. The problem is he is a mediocre quarterback in the playoffs. And you can look at everything that's gone on since his team won the Super Bowl and kind of point to that. Since winning the Super Bowl, Rodgers is 6-8 in the postseason, including 0-3 in the NFC title game. The loss against San Francisco puts him at 0-4 against the 49ers in the playoffs. He wants to sit here and say that he owns the Chicago Bears. Well, guess what? The 49ers own you in the playoffs. They're 2-0 against you with Kaepernick. They're 2-0 against you with Jimmy Garoppolo, who are not even close to being on the same level as Aaron Rodgers. So that right there is kind of a slap in the face. The 49er game checks in as the 5th coldest playoff game in Lambeau Field history. Of those 5 playoff games, the Packers are 2-3 in those games. They're 0-3 in their last 3, and they're 0-2 in their last 2, in which Aaron Rodgers was the quarterback in both of those games. Both of those games came against the 49ers. No, Freddie, I'm not going to say that the loss was on Rodgers at all. The special teams did let Rodgers down on Sunday. They gave up a blocked field goal. They gave up a blocked punt, which resulted in a touchdown. However, I am going to blame Rodgers for one huge thing. You were 20 of 29 passing for 228 yards, but you had a 75-yard completion to Aaron Jones to end the first half, which resulted in that blocked field goal. Take away that completion, you had 152 yards passing on 19 completions. Take away the 24-yard strike you had to Davante Adams in the first quarter, and you finished with less passing yards than Jimmy Garoppolo did on 18 completions. That is not how an MVP should be playing, and that is not what a two-time MVP should look like. When the game was on the line and the game was tied at 10, you had the ball in your hands with 3 minutes and 42 seconds left, where all you literally needed to do was take 2, maybe 3 minutes off the clock, put Mason Crosby in field goal range to set up the winning field goal, and the game was yours. Instead, first play is a legal man downfield, so you have to replay the down. Your first pass is a 3-yard out to Davante Adams. That's not going to get you anywhere. Your second pass is a near pick six where the cornerback jumped the route and dropped the pass. And on third down, you had a wide open Allen Lazard streaking across the middle of the field where if you hit him in stride, it is a 40-yard completion into field goal range. But instead, you throw the ball in the triple coverage to Davante Adams. Ball goes incomplete. 49ers get the ball back, and they basically did what they do best. They run out the clock, set Robbie Gould up, who is now 20 for 20 in field goals in the postseason. If that's the kind of performance that a two-time MVP shows on the big stage, I don't want to be an MVP anymore because he did not live up to that billing. Yes, the special teams did not help him, but he still had a chance to put the game away. Yes, Freddie, the defense played garbage in 2 of the last 3 years. However, the defense was not the problem this past Saturday night. It was the offense that only scored 10 points. And the offense falls on the hands of Aaron Rodgers. He's supposed to be the one doing what he's done all season. And again, he failed to deliver when it mattered most. And at this point, I don't think he's back in Green Bay because I don't think he can be. I think it's gotten to the point now where no matter how well he plays, no matter what that team gives him in terms of weapons and what that team gives him defensively, I think he's gotten to the point where he no longer can win in Green Bay the way he wants to.
Well, Dustin, a lot just transpired there, but let me start with this. I've been the one person that I know a lot of Packers fans, and they all want to tell me that, Aaron Rodgers does nothing wrong. It's all Green Bay's fault. He never has weapons. He never has a defense. Well, this year, your defense gave up 10 points when you had the ball in your hand.
Technically, they gave up 6.
6. Yeah, your special teams gave up the other points. But let's just throw it all in there. Defense, special teams, all fantasy players know it's the same thing. Same thing. Give up 10 points, your team did. You tell me you can't score 10 points? You can't score 10 points with the best receiver in football on your side? With Aaron Jones, who's become one of the better running backs in the league? You can't score 10 points? You can't score 13 points? You can't get them down the field? And again, I remember November, everyone's telling me, Green Bay, how do you beat Green Bay? They're the best team in the league. There's no way you can beat them. And I go on, and I tell this to people. If anyone's seen How I Met Your Mother, Ted Mosby, he's starting his architecture firm, and he tells a story about the Wells Library. It was a perfect library designed by a guy named Herman B. Wells. But he didn't account for the weight of the books. Everything outside looked perfect, but the way the book sinks the building every year a couple inches. And I hate to say it, but that's the Green Bay Packers. It looks perfect. So good. Regular season. How can you stop him? Aaron Rodgers, he's that good. The defense looks better. Everything looks perfect. And then somehow they always sink. They always sink. Since he's won that Super Bowl, they've always sunk. And again, everyone's talking about Aaron Rodgers needs to go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl to cement that legacy of his. He needed just to be the San Francisco 49ers to get a chance to play in the NFC Championship game again. If you would have asked any NFC team, who would you have rather played that weekend out of the Bucs, the Rams, and the 49ers? Everybody in their mind would have said the 49ers. And Aaron Rodgers got that draw. He got the bye week. He got everything he needed, and he couldn't get it done. And like you said, less passing yards if you take away the 75-yard strike and the 24-yard strike, which were great passes, great throws, great plays. But again, you can only put up 10 points. You can't get to 13. You have 3 minutes with the ball in your hand to get your kicker into field goal range. It's not your defense anymore. It's you. You have the ball in your hand. Last year when they said put the ball in Aaron Rodgers' hands on 4th down, he'll get it done. Here it is. You have 4 downs every single drive. Go get it done. And he couldn't deliver. And to Dustin, to your point, I don't think he's coming back to Green Bay. I don't think he wants to be back in Green Bay. And I honestly don't think they're going to be able to get him in Green Bay. You talked about the salary thing. I'll let you talk about that. But to me, it just feels like Aaron Rodgers kind of ran out of excuses. It feels like he's just kind of done. I think the fan base is kind of done. And right now, I think he's broken every single relationship in that building. And to me, before there was a hiring this week, I thought he was going to retire. So Dustin, explain, if the Green Bay Packers wanted to bring Rodgers back, what would they need to do?
So right now the Green Bay Packers are, I believe, $42 million or $46 million over the cap, which is the second worst cap situation, only ahead of the New Orleans Saints. To bring Rodgers back, yes, he's under contract. Again, he's under contract for next season for like 20-some million, but he says he wants that extension for 35 to 40 million a year. So just to entertain that idea, the Packers would have to shed roughly $80 million to create $40 million in cap space to bring him back. Well, then you have Davante Adams to worry about. Whether they sign him to an extension or not, they could also franchise tag Davante Adams this year. Well, to franchise tag Davante Adams, it's going to cost you $20 million. So if you want to bring both of those guys back, you theoretically have to shed $100 million to create $60 million in cap space to bring them both back. There is not a team in the NFL that can shed $100 million and remain competitive, which leads me to believe that the Packers are about to enter some sort of a rebuild mode to either restructure some of these guys' contracts, trade some of these guys away to get rid of some of these higher paid contracts. And if the Packers are going to go into a rebuild mode, Aaron Rodgers is not going to stay for that. If he wants to play another couple of years, he's not going to want to be part of a rebuild. He wants to look elsewhere so he has a chance to get to one more Super Bowl. So at this point, it's either he moves on to a different organization or he retires, because I don't think there's a physical way the Packers can afford to sign both Rodgers and Adams, and it's going to be difficult for them to even bring one of them back at this point.
So you talked about Aaron Rodgers. They're going to have to shed $100 million. $100 million to go and bring back him and Davante Adams, which we know they want to be a package deal. They see themselves as a Jordan and Pippen. And, okay, can I just be real honest with you? I wanted the Packers to lose so badly because of the Last Dance. And you brought it up last week too, when they posted the Last Dance thing at the beginning of the season. It was like, okay, all right, go do it. Go do it. If you lose, I'm going to bring it back, though. We're going to bring it back if you lose. Make sure we kept the receipts. To me, for Aaron Rodgers, it's, again, he doesn't want to be in a rebuild. And I just think he's broken so many relationships in Green Bay that he doesn't want to come back. But even then, for me, Aaron Rodgers is a guy who I feel like doesn't want to change. He's going to want to do things his way. That's what it's been presented by. Again, whether that's the media misconstruing him or whatever we've seen out of Aaron Rodgers, he's going to do things his way and he doesn't really want to change. Well, again, before a signing we'll talk about later, the only place he could do that was in Green Bay. And he'd already shattered that. They can't afford to bring him back. So now the next place that you can think of, and we'll talk about this hiring later, so I'm not going to even get into it. But, all right, we talked about this one quarterback. Again, Aaron Rodgers. Just keep that on the back of your mind right now, because I do want to get to who that hiring. I'm sure we all know who that hiring is. That
and you want to
through the NFL.
I think of something funny.
We transition.
Aaron Rodgers plays in Wisconsin. Cold weather football is supposed to be what Packer fans dream about. Honestly, teams do not fear coming to Green Bay anymore in January, because if you've watched the last several years, cold weather bothers the Packers more than it bothers these teams coming in.
Which is
crazy.
Right
there to kind of show you that he's getting sick of just being in these cold weather environment games where he's just sitting there freezing and really getting nothing out of it.
Which is wild, because I remember in the broadcast, Troy Aikman saying that he enjoys playing in the colder weather more. And I'm saying, are you sure? It don't look like it. I know he's played here for a long time, but it don't look like he's having a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Like with Tom Brady, I can see he would enjoy playing in the colder weather more because he consistently performs and the other team can't. But it doesn't seem like Aaron Rodgers is performing right now in January. All right, speaking of Tom Brady, almost brings his Bucs all the way back. Does bring his Bucs all the way back, but the defense could not uphold it one last time. They made a bunch of stops in the middle of the game, just the last stop they couldn't get. Matthew Stafford puts an absolute rainbow over to Cooper Kupp and ends the Bucs season. Matt Gay, a former Buck who had missed 2 field goals beforehand, finally makes a field goal that Rams fans can be happy about. So now Tom Brady has put out a lot of quotes talking about his family, how he's going to have to rethink and think about what's best for everybody. Dustin, do you think we just saw the final game of Tom Brady's illustrious career?
No. Tom Brady's addicted to competition. And as long as there's a competition factor weighing his decision, he's going to look to kind of pursue that and live it out. The comments that he made about his family and about his wife not wanting him to take the hits that he took in that game on Sunday, definitely something that he's going to have to consider. But he's also going to bring it to the Bucs front office, say, hey, we need to address this part of our team if we want to get back to where we want to go. Tom Brady's the type of guy that wants to retire on top. So given that he went out the way he did in front of the home fans, I don't think he wants this to be his last game. Now, if this would have been like the Super Bowl and he would have lost, or even the NFC Championship game and he would have lost, that's a different story. But this was the divisional game in front of the home fans where you really didn't look that good for 3 quarters. It was only 1 quarter that you actually looked like Tom Brady. The other 3 quarters you were struggling. I just don't think he goes out like this just because of the competitive nature he has. And he's like one of those guys that he's not like an egomaniac like Aaron Rodgers, but like he's one of those guys that you just kind of get the picture that he wants to retire on top, whether it's winning the Super Bowl or at least getting back one more time.
So for me, I am praying that Tom Brady does not retire because I'm not ready for that. Because once he retires, that means childhood is officially over for me, and I'm not ready yet. But every quote he's put out, it feels like it's closer, one step closer to him to retiring. And I agree with
the first time that he's really thrown his family into it. Like all the other times, he's basically said, "I will play until I feel like I can't."
Yep.
Which obviously, you throw 40-some touchdowns as a 45-year-old, almost you obviously can play it. But the fact that you're throwing your family into the mix now, that's when you know it's getting close to being your time.
Exactly, and that's what's scaring me almost because, again, I agree with everything you said. He's the kind of guy I think wants to finish on top because he just wants to show everybody one last time that, hey, I can do it. And to be fair, he would be willing to take all the pay cuts he can to bring back everybody that they do. He's done that throughout his career. And really the big signees that they got to get back. They got to get back Chris Godwin. That's one of the guys they're going to have to pay, and it makes their decision so much easier because you're thinking about, okay, do you have to pay Antonio Brown or Chris Godwin at the beginning of the year? Antonio Brown basically said, I'm out. He didn't basically say, he walked out the door shirtless. So you knew that he wasn't going to come back. And defensively, they don't really have anyone to bring back. Antoine Winfield would be the one guy that you would need to pay, and he's not in that contract situation, just second year in. You have Carlton Davis, who would be the big issue because he is someone who is coming up on his first contract. But Brady would take the pay cuts. I think for me, will Tampa Bay have a team that's ready to win? And if they do, I think Brady will say, give me one more year. Because I think this kind of left a bitter taste in his mouth because he knows I'm good enough to play. I basically led the league in every passing category. Again, I led my team all the way back. We were one stop away from getting into overtime, and who knows what happens in overtime if we win the coin toss. That is something to him. If that team is ready, I think he'll be willing to say one more year. But everything that's come out, if the Bucs don't make some big-time moves early in this offseason in terms of bringing guys back, I could see Brady hanging it up. And I think it's going to be a late towards draft day or training camp type of deal where he ends up hanging it up or not. I don't think he's going to make his decision very early. He's going to see what the Bucs do, what they're able to bring. But this is the most real conversation I think we've ever had about Tom Brady actually retiring.
Yeah, but that, like I said, I think is all based on when you start throwing family in it. That's when you know that. Because even the next guy that we'll talk about brought up that it's time for him to be a dad, which is Ben Roethlisberger, which is going to be our next topic anyway. So anytime you hear any professional athlete start to basically use family as the card and basically say it's time for me to be a dad and be a husband and a father and all this, that's when you know the chapter on their playing days are closing and they're ready to just kind of step away and open that second chapter away from everything.
And we'll move right into Big Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben Roethlisberger is hanging it up after 18 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers, the most by a quarterback with a single team. 2 Super Bowls, 64,000 passing yards, 5,440 pass completions, and 418 touchdowns, and 165 wins later. Big Ben Roethlisberger has officially decided to hang it up. Dustin, is Big Ben Roethlisberger a Hall of Famer?
I do not know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he'll get in. He's got 2 Super Bowls. He's been to 3 Super Bowls. He got all 3 of his Super Bowl appearances the first 5 years as a quarterback. So the first 5 years in the league, he got the 3 Super Bowls, which not many quarterbacks can say. And then after that, he never got back. But it's not like Pittsburgh wasn't competitive because Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season as a head coach.
Yep.
So the big reason for that is you had Ben Roethlisberger as your quarterback your entire coaching career. So obviously, if you're not having a losing season, Roethlisberger's doing something right for you. I mean, you can look at the personal off-the-field issues that he dealt with early in his career that a lot of people still hang over his head and this and that. And yes, I agree. A lot of the stuff he did off the field is uncalled for. And had this been the way NFL looks at things now, he may not have played as long as he did just because of how serious they take some of the allegations that he went through. But the numbers and everything that he's done, you can't argue that he's a Hall of Famer. I mean, 18 years with one of the more historic franchises in the game. You knew what you were going to get out of him every single year. He was going to be a competitive quarterback that was going to put you in playoff contention every single year. He got you to 3 Super Bowls. You walked away with 2 of them in your hands. How can you not put him in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I agree. To me, I think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer because I just think when you think about the all-time quarterbacks in the 2000s, you think Brady, you think of Breeze, you think of Manning, think of Rodgers, then you think of Big Ben. And you can throw Kurt Warner in that conversation. But again, those first 5 years of his career were just dream. They were a dream start to an NFL career for him. And then, yeah, he didn't get back to a Super Bowl. But for me, it's really kind of the thing that separates him from Eli Manning was they were always right there in contention. They were always in the playoff mix. They were always, in the divisional or conference championship game. And you felt like if Brady hadn't been with New England or in the AFC, Big Ben could have gone to a couple more Super Bowls because that team was always really good. They just were never all good enough to beat the New England Patriots. And again, I talked about earlier, over 5,000 pass completions, over 64,000 passing yards, 418 touchdowns. And again, we can talk about stats, but the biggest thing, 165 wins in 18 seasons. And yeah, the last 2 seasons were not terrific, if we're going to be honest. They weren't great. But you talk about 165 wins in 18 seasons. We're talking about at least 9 wins a year. You're talking about being a wild card team every single year that you're in the league. To me, that's good. That's first ballot Hall of Fame stuff because you're winning, and he's a big part of them winning. And yeah, maybe it's just me being a little bit biased because, again, childhood quarterback. But he was one of the toughest guys you'll ever see play the game in terms of guys draped off of him, and he was a different style of quarterback too. You know what I mean? Like you see Brady and Manning, kind of this very precision quarterbacks, and you can throw Breeze in there, and then you have the Lamar Jacksons or the Michael Vicks of the world who just run around and faster. This guy's just bigger and stronger and just has the best arm you've ever seen, one of the better arms you've ever seen, and just will make all kinds of plays and keep his team in games. To me, I think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer based off the stats, based off what he's won. And again, 3 appearances, 2 Super Bowl wins, and the one he lost was to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
And you look at that game against the Chiefs too. He knew it was over. Like once Kansas City got up 28-7, like he knew it was over. You could see it in his face. You could just see like, well, this is the final whatever minutes of my NFL career. But he didn't let that bother him. He still went out there and he still competed. He got Pittsburgh into the end zone a couple times, and at least he was able to walk off of that field at the end of the game with a loss, but at least he was able to walk off of that field with actually a pretty decent numbers because he played 100% with heart the rest of that game. Like most quarterbacks, when you're down 35-7 to Kansas City, you're pretty much just going to be like, well, this sucks. And you're just going to kind of just let the moment get to you. That wasn't him, and that was never the way he was as a player. No matter what the score showed on that scoreboard, you knew you were going to get 110% effort out of him for a full 60 minutes when he was out there.
Absolutely did. And one of the sad things that I realized was, the song Gangnam Style, like the meme that went crazy. That was 2012, so that was 10 years ago. I heard someone verbalize that. So they were kids, they were 5th graders who, when they think of Big Ben, they'll think about the last 2 years of his career. And that really upset me because those kids will never know what he did in the late 2000s and the 2010s. They'll think about what he did in his last 2 years of his career. And again, for us, like, we've never even thought about that as Big Ben. We think of that as that's the end of your career. That's what you're supposed to look like. There are kids today who think that's what Big Ben was his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real scary thing. But I think we could both agree he's Hall of Famer. What ballot he will be.
I just think it depends on who's the ballot with him. I'm not saying he can't be first ballot, but if you have, like, I'll just throw like random names out there. If you have guys like Randy Moss and Jerry Rice and these guys on the ballot with him,
it'll be hard.
He's not going to be a first ballot with names like that. But I still think he's got a shot to be a first ballot. It just depends on who's on the ballot with him that year.
Well, there we go. Big Ben Roethlisberger, Hall of Famer. We just don't know what time yet. We'll be right back after a quick break.
Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. Sport all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. Network. We on top of our game. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays.
All right, welcome back. We're going to talk about the conference championship now. We have 4 games. They're on Sunday, so no more Saturday games. Those are fun, but now it's real-time, big-time football. We got the Final 4, and we're going to start off in the morning. In the afternoon, we got the Bengals going up to Arrowhead to go and take on the Kansas City Chiefs. Dustin, are we in route for an upset, or is it just going to be Chief City?
I think we're both in agreement that the Kansas City Chiefs are the new dynasty in the AFC. This is their 4th consecutive AFC championship game. This is going to be Patrick Mahomes' 10th playoff game as a quarterback. And he has yet to play a single game away from Arrowhead Field outside of the Super Bowls. He doesn't know what it's like to be on the road for the postseason. He's comfortable. He's got 25 touchdowns and 1 interception in the playoffs. He throws 13 more playoff touchdown passes. He moves into second place all time behind Brady. And this could happen as soon as next year if he gets back. That just shows you what he has done since he has gotten to the playoffs compared to everybody else that may have been in the playoffs for 10, 12 years. He could surpass all of them in 5 years. And that's just scary to think about. Cincinnati, it's an interesting matchup because you look at what Jamar Chase did against them the first time. 260 yards receiving. Burrow had 430 yards passing, and Cincinnati only won 34-31. That game was in Cincinnati. That game was not in Kansas City. This Kansas City crowd is going to be hectic. This Kansas City crowd is going to be on Joe Burrow early and often. Not saying he can't deliver because he played at LSU. He played in the SEC, so he's used to hostile environments as it is. But when you're in the AFC Championship game, this is basically that territory where you're kind of getting to the point where Mahomes is like, been there, done that, what's new? Because he's been here so much, he knows what to do. But you also have to look at the Andy Reid versus Zach Taylor. Yeah. Zach Taylor is a third-year head coach. Andy Reid is in his 23rd year. This is Andy Reid's eighth conference championship game. This is Zach Taylor's first. As much as I trust Mahomes, as much as I trust Burrow, it's going to come down to decisions made by Andy Reid or Zach Taylor. And I just trust Andy Reid way more than I trust Taylor in a game like this. So I got to go with Kansas City. I think Kansas City wins by about 10. So I think they start pulling away in the fourth quarter when you kind of get into that crunch time where you're going to need a big decision. I just don't know if Taylor has those decisions yet to make.
Yeah, this definitely feels like a game where it's like Mahomes has been here, done that, and Burrow's a new kid on the block that people are just waiting for just to take over the league. To me, it kind of feels like those Patriots-Colts matchups in the AFC Championship games where Brady would take on Andrew Luck, and you're sitting there like you're waiting for Andrew Luck to kind of take it over from Tom Brady. It just never happened, and those games were never close. It was like 45-10. You know, like that would be one of the closer scores in those games. But this game does kind of feel like a trap game to me for Kansas City. And it's because it feels like there might be a perfect storm brewing for the Cincinnati Bengals, right? They've been playing really great football. in terms of through the air, running the ball. They got a lot of weapons. And the secondary is going to be a question mark. Their secondary was very bad last week against Josh Allen and company. They've been bad for a couple of weeks now. And now we don't even know Tyrann Mathieu is going to play. Now, he's looking better towards playing. It looks more and more like he's going to play. But we still don't know at what percentage he'll be at in that game. And if you have to turn up to that offense with Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins, with Tyler Boyd, and then Joe Mixon in the backfield and Joe Burrow at quarterback, and you don't have a secondary that can compete with that, they're going to be able to put up point for point. I think they're going to be able to go point for point. I don't think any defense is really going to be that great against either side. And to me, I think it's going to be a lot closer. I think it is going to be a 3-4 point game. I don't expect it to be a 10-point game just because, again, I think that Joe Burrow is going to have his moments, and I think that secondary for the Chiefs is going to struggle. But as you said, Patrick Mahomes is just Patrick Mahomes at this point in the playoffs. He's got 25 passing touchdowns in the playoffs. And we talked about he gets 20 more. He's just behind Brady. He would jump with Joe Montana, who people said the greatest playoff quarterback that's ever been around. He gets 20 more, he jumps him, So, and he's only in his, 10th playoff game. So we talk about what he's been able to do. But this NFL season has been the craziest NFL season I've ever seen. Maybe it's from a fan's perspective that I'm going to make this pick up. I'm going to pick Cincinnati. I'm picking the upset. Again, we've seen some crazy upsets, and maybe it's because I saw the Jackson Mahomes TikTok this morning, and that really upset me. And I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go ahead and pick the Cincinnati Bengals. But you know what? I'm picking the Bengals. I'm going to pick them to go ahead and beat the Chiefs. I think it's going to be another 3-point game. I get it. It's loud. It's at home. Mahomes is Mahomes. I just think Burrow and company are going to be able to keep up with them.
If Burrow is sacked 9 times by this Kansas City Chiefs defense, it's going to be a long day for Cincinnati.
Oh, absolutely. But the one good thing for them is the secondary is not going to be intact.
Yeah, that's why I don't think he gets sacked 9 times, but I think if they can get pressure Burrow early, it's going to be different. Jamar Chase or not, it's going to cause Burrow to kind of get what you call happy feet and just kind of start doing a little too much than what he should.
Yeah, but the one thing, again, I like from Zach Taylor and that Bengals team last week was their ability to adjust when the game didn't go the way they thought it would go. They were willing to adjust and able to adjust, and I think that gives me a lot of confidence picking them. I'm not saying they're going to – probably the odds are they're not going to win this game, but it gives me a little bit more confidence in picking them for the upset because of the fact that I know if the game doesn't go perfectly, they can still win because they have the personnel and the ability to go and adjust.
Yeah.
Talking about a team that if it doesn't go perfectly, they probably aren't going to win. We jump to the 49ers taking on the Los Angeles Rams. We got the NFC West Part 3, the California Bowl, however you want to name it. If you're a sushi guy, I think California Roll is what you're looking for. You got the Niners taking on the Rams in LA. Part 3. Dustin, who do you have?
Well, it's kind of ironic that it took over 50 years for a team to play in their own stadium for the Super Bowl, but now you might have that 2 years in a row if the Rams can pull this off. I know the 49ers have the Rams number. They're 6-0 against the Rams the last 3 years. I just think the Rams are on a mission right now, and I think they kind of established that mission against the Cardinals in the first round of the playoffs. They kind of established that mission the first 3 quarters against Tampa Bay. They pretty much came out in the postseason to show everybody that they are the most talented team in the NFC top to bottom. They have a great quarterback in Stafford. They have Cooper Kupp. They have Beckham, who's still a top 10 receiver, and he's starting to show that again. And they have Cam Akers, who all of a sudden comes back to this lineup and looks like he never missed a beat. And that was the one thing that was missing from the Rams offense for quite a while was that consistent running game once Akers went down. But now that Akers is back, it gives the Rams that element of surprise because not only do you have to take into account for what he can do, but you know what Matthew Stafford can do. And you know what Cooper Kupp is going to do. So now teams are going to kind of be like off balance. So you look at the 2 losses that the Rams had against the 49ers this year. Akers did not play in either one of those games. So now the 49ers kind of have to plan for somebody they really haven't seen this year. And they're going to need to score more than 13 points to beat the Rams just because the Rams defense is just as good as what Green Bay's defense was. So they're going to be able to keep San Francisco out of the end zone. We saw how beat up Deebo Samuel got last week against Green Bay. So who knows how much of a factor he's going to be in the non-receiver side of things. I just like the Rams. I picked Kansas City and the Rams from the beginning of the year as my Super Bowl pick just because You have Mahomes on the one side, and then you added Matthew Stafford to an already talented Rams team. I got to stick with the Rams in this one. I wouldn't be surprised if this game went into overtime or was decided by a field goal, but I got to stick with the Rams in this one.
Yeah, I think the injuries to Debo and Kittle also came up gimpy at the end of that game too. So he's going to play, but at what percentage? That kind of turned me off from the 49ers here. Look, it's been a great story. It's been a great run. You're the 7th seed. You beat Dallas. You go to Green Bay. You beat them, and now you get a chance to beat a team that you haven't or that hasn't beat you in years. But I think LA is just too good. I think OBJ has never played this good in an LA Rams jersey until last week. Really, the playoffs have just been his time. He's been so consistent now over these past couple of weeks. I don't know how they cover him. Their secondary is beat up as well, the 49ers. And then you talk about if your secondary is playing well, they're going to go and run at you. And for an aggressive front like the Niners, they can sometimes get exposed to some running. We saw that the Green Bay Packers had instances where they were able to run the ball pretty well. Matthew Stafford, again, people are starting to realize he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, and had his career not been wasted in Detroit, he could have been something special for somebody. That's just the truth of it. And he was special for Detroit, too. He made some of the greatest throws, made some of the greatest plays, but it all happened in Detroit. This team is there. They're the most talented team top to bottom. And, again, if they can play like they did in that first 3 quarters against Tampa, this is not going to be a competition. Now, again, they did do that against the 49ers where they played good for 3 quarters, and then the 4th quarter kind of screwed everything up. But I just don't see Sean McVay losing another time this team, especially in the postseason, especially with the confidence that this team is brimming on after beating Brady and the defending champs. Give me the Rams to go ahead and get to a Super Bowl and make it back-to-back years so we get a home Super Bowl team. So we have our picks. Those are our picks. I'm sure you've hit a lot of picks so far. But now we got to talk about the teams that aren't in the postseason, right? We got a lot of teams who have made a lot of moves. And we're going to start off with the Chicago Bears, who seem to have their new future kind of picked out. They got Ryan Poles from Kansas City, a former Kansas City exec. And then they got the defensive coordinator for Indianapolis, not the defensive guy I thought they were going to get. But they get Matt Eberflus. Eberflus, is that how we pronounce his name? Eberflus. Just giving them some character. All right, Dustin. How do you feel about both those signings or one of those signings, or how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm very upset that Poles went to the Bears because Minnesota was in the running to get him. So that side of things, I guess, makes sense. The Bears got a good hire there. But the Eberflus hire is a question that I have. Yes, he worked wonders in Kansas City, especially with that defense. But we saw even before the Bears hired a GM that Eberflus was one of their 3 finalists that they were bringing back. But then they brought in Poles, and they said Poles would have full say as to who the next head coach would be. I'm wondering if he even had any say in it at all. I'm wondering if it was basically, well, we kind of have our mind made up, so we just want you to interview who we want, and if you like him, then we're going to hire him kind of situation. But Matt Eberflus's sister is also related to the McCaskey family. So is that more of – yeah, I'm not even going to get into that. I'm just wondering if this was actually the hire that they actually wanted, or if it's more of kind of, oh, we'll just keep it in the family. Your sister's related to us, so here, we'll give you your first head coaching job.
Well, that's what we call Dustin Siri, because I'm sure there's no one else who figured that stuff out right there. Look, for me, I thought they were going to go defense. I really thought they made a lot of sense to go get a defensive guy and get a culture builder. But I thought that was going to be the former Brian Flores. And that it wasn't was very shocking to me. I was ready to see Brian Flores take that job, and I wanted him to go get Justin Fields and get a chance to run with a quarterback that he likes. The Eberflus, again, he worked great stuff in Kansas City, and I like the Ryan Poles hire a lot, but I was with you. I said if before they had got to the GM, they had already decided on the 3 guys that they were looking at, and then they said, oh, okay, you're going to get the final say here, Poles. You're going to get full control. I was like, are they going to pivot, or are they going to keep with these 3? Does they so happen to line up perfectly that the 3 that Poles likes are the 3 that the Bears like? It was just a confusing situation. I'm hoping for Justin Fields that Matt Eberflus is the truth and that he is a good head coach and lets the offensive coordinator do his thing. Because, again, if they can get the defense playing back, they get some health back, and they give Justin Fields an actual play caller, you're going to have success. Next up, I think this hire was the one that made the most sense from the weekend. The Denver Broncos go and get Nathaniel Hackett. Now you might be wondering, why do I know that name? Well, he is the Packers offensive coordinator. Dustin, why they go get Nathaniel Hackett?
They hired him for one reason only. They have a feeling that you bring Nathaniel Hackett into Denver, you can get Aaron Rodgers to come with and Davante Adams to follow.
Absolutely.
Denver's one of the few teams that can afford Aaron Rodgers this offseason. They're one of the few teams that can afford both Adams and Rodgers this offseason. They were in the playoff hunt for 15 weeks of the 18 weeks this year with no quarterback, really. Teddy Bridgewater played okay. Drew Lock had one or two good games. That was about it. Denver's got a top 10 defense. They have all the offensive talent in the world. The only missing piece is a quarterback. And if Rodgers doesn't want to go through a rebuild, go to Denver where everything is set up to succeed with plenty of young talent.
And I'm with you with this one. Remember, I said earlier that Aaron
and
Rodgers
his fiance's from that area too, so it makes it a little bit more sense.
She is. I was saying earlier that Aaron Rodgers feels like the type of guy who really doesn't want to change. He's going to want to do things his way. Well, if we're being completely honest, how much say did Nathaniel Hackett have in that offense? Thank you. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure I'm not being like a prick or something. Like, I'm just going to be like, let's just be completely real. He could add like 1%. But Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers had way more power. Aaron Rodgers had more power, what they were calling, than Nathaniel Hackett did, truthfully. Now you bring in Nathaniel Hackett. Aaron Rodgers says, this guy lets me do what I want. I don't have to learn any new language because he's just bringing over the same playbook. And we get to run with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton.
And Noah Fant.
And 3 backs behind me that I trust. And Davante Adams can come here too. And I got a top 10 defense. Yeah, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, again, before that hire, I said he's probably going to retire. This is the one place that you can go and get Aaron Rodgers. And if you get Aaron Rodgers here, you're competing with Kansas City immediately. You're competing with the Chargers immediately. You're competing with Vegas immediately. And in one of the better divisions in NFL football, maybe the second best division in all of football.
You could have all 4 teams make it.
Exactly. You could have all 4 teams make it. And Nathaniel Hackett's only there because he was in Green Bay. Whoever the offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers was getting this head coaching job as soon as they saw that the Packers lost the way they did.
And Rodgers endorsed Hackett, too, a couple of weeks ago, saying that Hackett doesn't get enough credit for the job he does with the quarterbacks and doesn't get enough credit for the job he does on offense. Well, obviously, if Denver or anybody hears something like that coming from Rodgers, they're like, hey, how about you come here and, work your magic and lure that guy over here with you?
Yeah, we'll give you your credit as long as you just get us Aaron Rodgers. And again, if they don't get Aaron Rodgers, then Hackett might be a genius. Okay, you know what? If he is, send this to me a year from now. All right, I will apologize, but I wouldn't be surprised if he can't get Rodgers and Adams and he can't draft a quarterback. He could be gone in the year. He'd be gone after a year. This is a ploy to go get Aaron Rodgers, and I think everyone who doesn't see that either has some information that no one else has, or is just kind of blinded because they think Nathaniel Hackett's a nice guy. Next up, we'll talk about another NFC North team since we're talking about the Packers. How about Kwesi Adofo-Mensah? He was hired as a GM to Dustin's Minnesota Vikings. He was in Cleveland prior to this. How do you feel about this pickup?
Wasn't my first choice, but I don't mind the hire. He's got a very intriguing background, which is kind of why I like the hire. He's been involved in the college scouting department for about 5 or 6 years, going back to the 49ers before he got with Cleveland. So obviously he knows the college scouting game. He knows how to scout players because if you look at a lot of the 49ers roster right now, he was a part of that. If you look at the Cleveland Browns roster right now, he was part of that. He was part of bringing Nick Chubb there. He was part of getting Mayfield and kind of all the core players that the Browns have. He had a say in it just because he worked in the scouting department. He's also got a business and finance degree from Harvard. And Minnesota is one of those teams that needs help reworking their salary cap space. Well, why not bring in a guy that knows a thing or two about finances and business where he can kind of play around with these contracts and see what he can do in terms of restructuring and maybe moving money from somebody's contract here over here, which will save money down the road for this, whatever weird scenario he can think of in his head. Maybe just moving $10 million off of this guy's contract opens up like $50 million down the road here. And he's also a guy that is very involved in the analytics side of things, which football's becoming super analytic now with like 4th down conversions and going for 2 in these situations and this and that, where I personally don't think football and analytics need to be tied together, but the game's going that way in some instances. So yep. I like the hire in that way just because he has such a wide background that he can bring to the table. My only question is what the bleep are they doing in the head coach at this point? Because every candidate that they said they are interested in, I don't understand why. Because none of them fit what Minnesota wants to do at this point. So unless he has somebody in mind that he wants to interview, yeah, I don't know if his first year in Minnesota is going to go too well at this point.
And I liked him from the financial side of things because, again, I saw the Harvard degree when I Googled him. And I said that's Princeton degree. Yeah, it was a Princeton degree when I Googled him. And it made a lot of sense because I think we talked about this before, me and you, that the GM here is going to have to be very creative and be very good at working around money because, again, you got the Kirk Cousins, you got Dalvin Cook's contract, Jay Jettas is going to need one, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen. He has this whole ordeal going on. There's plenty of guys on defense who have big contracts who are getting older, getting hurt. So you got to find a way to kind of rework some money around, try to get some pieces here and there. And from that side of things, he makes a lot of sense. And again, I can't fault him because he was a big part of bringing in that Cleveland team together. He brought those pieces in together. Did Odell Beckham work? No. But is that Odell Beckham's fault? Doesn't seem like it is, right? Based off what we're seeing from LA. Nick Chubb has been a great piece. Kareem Hunt has been a great piece. He's been a guy to get a lot of these pieces in the building. And honestly, just been disappointed by one guy. And that guy, he didn't draft. So, it's just the whole situation of that ordeal. So I think that he has the opportunity in Minnesota to do some good things. But like you said, it's going to be the head coach. Who can they get a head coach? Because they are in desperate need of a culture shock, a culture reset, and a way just to get this locker room back, because the way Mike Zimmer left it, saying the things he said about the rookie quarterback, Kellen Mond, saying some of the stuff he said, it was just embarrassing for that team. So they got to find a coach that can come in here and just reset the whole phrasing around the Minnesota Vikings. Next up, we talk about Joe Schoen. I believe is his name.
I think his last name is Shane.
It's Shane. All right, Shane. They all got different names, last names here. Being taken by the New York Giants from the Buffalo Bills to go be their GM. Everyone has something really nice to say about Joe Schoen. They all like Joe Schoen and what he's been able to do. They say he's got a keen eye. He has got a lot of preparation, attention to detail, the professional stuff that they all got to say. Dustin, what do you feel about this hire?
I think the Giants won in terms of the GM signings right now. Bringing Joe Schoen to the Giants is huge for a couple of reasons. He was the assistant GM with the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills have a coach named Brian Daboll, who is their offensive coordinator, who is a hot coaching commodity right now. He basically changed the way Josh Allen plays football in a matter of 2 years and turned Josh Allen into a top 5 quarterback. Why not bring Daboll over from Buffalo and put him with Daniel Jones to see what you can do? Daniel Jones has a very similar skill set to what Josh Allen has, just obviously not as good. He's a great running quarterback. He's got a strong arm. It's just that Josh Allen was able to use that to his advantage with the help of Daboll. So I kind of want to see what Daboll could do with Daniel Jones, given that he's worked with a quarterback of that talent. Daboll also has high praise for Mitch Trubisky, who's on a 1-year deal in Buffalo and who will be a free agent. Why not try to get Mitch Trubisky to come over and sign a 3-year deal to kind of get his chance at a new starting role with a new organization with a guy that actually believes in him? Because Mitch Trubisky really was not that bad in Chicago. I don't care what anybody says. The Bears were better off with him as a starter than when he was not starting, and Matt Nagy was the reason why he failed. It wasn't anything that he did. So why not give him somebody that believes in him and let him kind of utilize his talents to his strengths? If they don't get Daboll, I could see Brian Flores landing with the Giants, just because Joe Schoen is a very respected individual, and he knows Brian Flores back from his days with New England, back from his days with Miami. He had to face him twice a year, no matter what team he was on. So in this regard, I think it's actually a home run hire by the Giants because they could get one of the better head coaching candidates out of this. And then they could also help their quarterback position in the process, depending on who they bring in.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about him is he's a guy that a lot of people respect. And if you have respect, people will follow. And again, not just to say that this hires – he's not Nathaniel Hackett where he was only hired to bring in Brian Daboll or bring in Brian Flores. No, he's got some good qualities. People say he's a great evaluator and he picks really well in the draft, which is something they've struggled with from time to time. And he's got to find a way to work around some of the pieces and money places that they have money issues they have in New York. But he, again, is someone who's highly respected. So if you're a guy like Brian Daboll who's looking for your first head coaching job and you're looking to go to a place where a GM is going to give you the respect you deserve and you think the GM is competent, there you go, right? And you know this guy. Brian Flores, who, is basically out of Miami because of the fact that the GM didn't like change and only want to do things his way. Well, here you go. You got a guy who's, again, very respectable, who listens, who's been just the highest of praise everywhere he goes. This is a home run. This is one of the first good things in like 6 years that we've seen out of the New York Giants. This is something that can bring the $1 billion lawsuit to like $5 billion, because I think this signing saved them $1 billion because, again, Shane is someone who, again, very respected, great evaluator, picks well, and then has these connections. And you're absolutely right. If they can get in Brian Daboll, they not only have a chance to fix Daniel Jones, but also bring in Mitch Trubisky and see what you have left. Right? You got to see what you have left in the tank, because while he shouldn't have been the number 2 overall pick, he definitely had some talent. He has some talent. He can move around, has a decent enough arm. Now, is it all going to translate? Maybe, maybe not, but you're never going to know until you see him without Matt Nagy. And the same thing with Daniel Jones. You're never going to know unless you see him without Jason Garrett. So this is a hire that, again, can get them some really good head coaching candidates and now you can start surrounding this team and building this team from the ground up based off the talent that Shane is able to pick. All right. And we do have – so I want to talk about – this didn't happen this week. I think it happened like a week ago. But the New York Giants former head coach has got himself a new job. Oh, man, the Carolina Panthers with the splash hire. They fired Joe Brady. They said, we don't want you. We want a genius. And they bring in Ben McAdoo. Now, I live in North Carolina, and I have a lot of Panthers fans who are always talking about how the Panthers are going to be so good this year. They say, mark your calendar because the Panthers will be in the playoffs. And I texted them first. I said, mark your calendar. The Panthers will be picking in the top 10 because Ben McAdoo is now your offensive coordinator. Dustin, do you share my sentiment on this one?
My question is, how does Matt Rule still have a job after hiring Ben McAdoo? They got rid of Joe Brady because the offense played so terrible. I don't understand how going from Joe Brady to Ben McAdoo gives them any confidence that the offense is going to be better. I really don't. The only thing that I can think of is Eli Manning did play well under Ben McAdoo. So unless they kind of want him to kind of get in Sam Darnold's ear a little bit and see if having someone that's worked with, I'm not going to say a great quarterback, but having someone that's worked with a quarterback that was successful, maybe that'll help Sam Darnold, because Sam Darnold had Adam Gase for 3 years and then he had Matt Rule. So, I mean, Sam Darnold really has been stuck with the pretty slim pickings in terms of coaching his first 4 years. And he was a guy when he was drafted number 3 that a lot of people thought was the best quarterback in that class, just given his overall talent and what he showed at USC. Mm-hmm. The problem is he went to a garbage organization, the Jets, who had a garbage head coach, and then he got put in a tough situation last year with an offensive coordinator that was fired 7 or 8 weeks in. Yep. So maybe that is why they wanted McAdoo to come here, just because McAdoo did get a lot out of Eli Manning. He did have success with McAdoo, and if McAdoo has success with Sam Darnold, well, then Carolina has a tough question to face. Do you believe in Darnold enough to extend him a couple more years, or do you turn the page completely after him? But I just think this is going to crash and burn mightily, and I would not be surprised if Matt Rule is relieved of his duties midway through the season next year.
I know everyone's tough on Matt Rule, but I like what he did with the defense. If he can get Sam Darnold something of an offensive line, I think you have a chance. But this Ben McAdoo hire, like, I was the only one defending him for a while, and then this Ben McAdoo hire happened, and I said, man, Matt, you're making it really hard. You're making it really hard to defend anything you do, because Now, if this offense fails, it's because you brought in Ben McAdoo. And you know what, Carolina fans, good luck to you. Glad I ain't one of you guys. But Jacksonville may have something to root about now. It seems like they're in the final periods. They're just processing this. Byron Leftwich set to become the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. A homecoming for the man who played quarterback, led them to the playoffs, played against Tom Brady in the Jacksonville Jaguars uniform. Dustin, he's only really been on a big-time name for 2 years since he's got Tom Brady. Do you like this hire from Jacksonville, or this soon-to-be hire from Jacksonville?
This is, I think, the biggest no-brainer of the entire coaching landscape this year. I said Byron Leftwich should have went to Jacksonville day one. It should not have taken this long to get him there. He should have been hired 2 weeks ago because this was pretty much a no-brainer at that point. However, we have a snag in the deal right now which could prevent Leftwich from landing in Jacksonville. Leftwich wants the Jaguars to hire Adrian Wilson from the Arizona Cardinals and appoint him as new GM because he does not want to work with Trent Baalke.
Yep.
Well, as of today, Trent Baalke is still the general manager in Jacksonville. And as of today, Leftwich is not the head coach in Jacksonville. So if that's all it's going to take for the Jaguars to get Leftwich, I don't know what is taking them so long to move on from Baalke. I really don't. If you really want a coach that wants to be here, and apparently Leftwich wants to be here because he's pretty much giving him the ultimatum like, hey, I will come here, but you need to do this for me to make me feel comfortable. And yet they're not doing that. That is a concern that somebody might swoop in and give him a better offer, and then he pretty much just pulls a Josh McDaniels and goes somewhere else. So if I'm the Jaguars right now, I'm hiring Adrian Wilson. I'm either demoting Baalke or I'm promoting him to some sort of advisory role in the front office where he has no say over the organization anymore. And then you can have Adrian Wilson and Leftwich tied together.
Well, you mentioned that, and I saw this report actually. Mike Florio, he re-reported that longtime Cardinals reporter Mike Jaruki, he announced that Adrian Wilson will become the next general manager of the Jaguars, but this does not mean Trent Baalke won't be. So apparently there is a deal in place to bring in Wilson, but in what capacity will be interesting. To me, I would say demote Baalke or fire Baalke because you can't have a repeat of what happened with Urban Meyer again.
Nope.
I'm not sold on Byron Leftwich completely as of yet. I still would like to see another year of Byron Leftwich as an offensive coordinator or a year without Brady before I give him a head coaching job. But he's a bright young mind, and he's better than what you had. And to be fair with you, unless you go get Brian Flores or David Culley, you probably don't get anything better than him out of what's left on the market. So I'm doing what I can to get him. And again, that's that perfect homecoming thing. He's Jacksonville, brought up and raised in terms of the NFL production, and you bring him back in full circle. It just kind of feels like a good fit. Again, that report is out there that that Cardinals executive Adrian Wilson will become the next general manager of the Jaguars, but they are unsure of what Trent Baalke's future will be. So that is a story for all you Jaguars fans to watch, because if he's the guy you want, then you need Adrian Wilson to be the head general manager. And if he's not the guy you want,
just need Baalke out of the picture. It doesn't matter like how you get rid of him. You can put him in that advisory role to the owner. As long as he has no like bearing on the day-to-day operations, that's fine. You just need to get Baalke out of that picture somehow. And I mean, I wouldn't promote him, but you've seen it before, and it's happened with Chicago Bulls last year when they promoted Paxson. They promoted him out of the president role to an advisor to the owner just to kind of keep him in the organization, but got rid of his day-to-day decision-making. Just do that with Baalke. That way you can get Wilson in here. You can get him as the GM, Leftwich signs, and then everybody's happy, because if Leftwich isn't happy right now, he's not going to stick around if Baalke stays.
Absolutely. And he's not gonna come for coach under Trent Baalke. I do just want to get your quick opinion on this one. I saw this. Can you create the lineup that will score the most points for Sunday's NFL contest? So I'm just going to ask you position by position. Give me your quarterback. Who's going to give you the most points? I think it's pretty obvious.
Mahomes.
Okay,
Mahomes.
Yeah, all right. We're in agreement. The running back that you think, give me one running back.
Probably Joe Mixon, because Kansas City's run defense is not great. But otherwise, I mean, you could throw Debo in there.
Debo, yeah, if he's healthy.
Use Debo as a flex, I guess.
Or give me your 3 receivers that you would put, or 2 receivers. No, we'll say 3. 3 receivers. Give me 3 receivers.
Cup,
Mm-hmm.
Cup, Chase, Hill or Debo.
Okay.
Depending on how you use Debo.
Yep. And then your tight end. You got one
Kelsey.
tight end. Kelsey. Yep. All right. As long as you're in agreement. And then the defense you think is going to play the best.
Rams.
And there you go. All right. We're in agreement pretty much in every position. So I don't think that was the hardest question to be had, but it definitely is an interesting one because you're thinking about, okay, who are the best players left? But that is time for us here at ASAP Recap. We got a great week of football ahead of us. We hope you did enjoy the show. Dustin, you got any last words to say to the people?
Are we going to have a rematch of the 1980 San Francisco versus Cincinnati Super Bowl? Are we going to have another home team make the Super Bowl? Or are we going to have Mahomes cement himself as how do I say this? Not the GOAT, but this generation's version of the GOAT. If he gets to another Super Bowl this year, I think Mahomes cements himself as the 2020 version of the NFL GOAT.
A lot of things to think about. We got a crazy weekend of football, a lot of sports going on. And like we said, Patrick Mahomes has a chance to cement himself in history. If you can get back to a 3rd straight Super Bowl, you have a chance for a repeat of the Niners-Bengals Super Bowl. Joe Burrow can get to his first. Matthew Stafford can get to his first. We can have another home team. Lots to get into. We thank you so much for joining us for this hour on ASAP Recap. And until next Friday, stay safe.
Whole sports, all plays. Whole sports, all plays. Whole sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports, all plays.